What's your budget? That's the first question I ask. We can talk all day long about your dreams, but if your budget ain't there, you're not going to ever meet your dreams. Most of the time, I don't think clients truly understand the full spectrum of their scope, all the way up until you're doing the executing of it and building it. And then they're like, oh, wait a minute, I don't know if I want that. A lot of the headache and friction that causes turmoil between architects and builders that I've experienced over the past 20 years is truly the lack of communication. Well, everyone hides behind emails. There's an immediate assumption that, like, I'm just a desk jockey and I don't know anything, and you guys are just hammer swinging grunts, right? Just a heads up, all GCs are this way. None of them are different. That's what I was told. I had this level set of expectation of, well, maybe I shouldn't get my hopes up because everyone's telling me they're all the same. Then I started hearing from my builder buddies, them going, oh, you're an architect? You're that a-hole? Like, and I'm like, wait a minute, what are you guys hearing about architects?
Well, thanks, Justin, for joining us today. I've known you for, it's been a couple years now. We've done 2 projects successfully together and working on 2 others. So I think we have a little bit of history at this point, and that's a good thing. So thanks for taking the time. Justin, tell us a little bit about Creative Tech and your company and how you got to where you are.
Thanks for inviting me. My history goes way back. I actually have a pretty heavy construction background. In late teens, I was born and raised here in Phoenix. I got really tired of construction. I'm sure you can understand and appreciate that after a while on this time, it gets really daunting doing programming, wire pulling, just about everything that I was doing burned me out. So I ended up going to school, got 2 degrees at ITT, one degree as an associate's in computer drafting and design, and then I have a bachelor's degree in project management and construction administration. So fresh out of school, I ended up going and working at a bunch of firms all over the valley. I mean, everything from engineering, MEP engineering, to civil, to structural engineering, worked at a couple of elevator companies, doing elevator and escalator design. Basically, I had to do that because I was told when I graduated I had to have 5 years experience in other industries just to get my foot in the door of architecture. So I did that. I did a 5-year grind. Got my foot in the door at an architecture firm called Aviation. Worked there for several years as just a project manager. Gained a lot of experience in repertoire across the valley as well as the country doing rollout programs. Since that company, I worked at 6 other firms across the valley. I really built my PM right here in the valley locally. Just about everyone here in Arizona in the industry that you see knows me and knows my grandfather owned the company. I formed the company in 2021. It was kind of a success story out of a horrible situation that everyone was going through. The pandemic was killing everyone, like literally and figuratively and financially. I lost my job in the middle of the pandemic, just like most of, frankly, professional out there. And I had no opportunities whatsoever to really do anything as far as finding another position in another firm. So I decided to take things into my own hands. Ended up doing sole proprietor work here as a project manager in the valley for about a year. I set aside enough capital to form the LLC, which is Creative Tech, back in February of 2021. Back then when we formed, there was only myself, my business partner, and one other drafter. As of today, which is our 5th year, we actually have a network of over 20 plus employees. I'm not really used to people calling me boss still, but everybody calls me boss. It's a really fun thing. But yeah, so Creative Tech, what we do as a whole, I'm sure you're well aware of, but I'll share with everyone else, is we do everything under the sun that you can think of. We don't like to call ourselves just one sole source type of architect. We can do everything from scheduling, material takeoffs, planning, construction management, as well as project management. We do site verifications, as-built, permitting, the whole nine. We'll even do design, If we can't do it, we actually have a vast network of professionals, builders alike, that can help us with that. Typically, try and tell everyone that comes at us, can you help? What do you need help with? It's not doing that in arrogance. It's truly just we touch all of it, and most people get surprised when they hear our versatility. But yeah, our versatility truly keeps us in that spotlight, separate from all of the other professionals here that we're working with. And then the irony behind all of it is 90% of our client base that Creative Tech brings in are our competitors. So we get hired on the constant throughout the year by architects and engineers alike to essentially work on their projects with them rather than us going and trying to acquire that work on our own, which we can do. We'd rather just benefit our what people would call as our competitors, and then they become our actual team members. We have 6 or 7 engineering teams that work with us throughout the year, and I'd say they probably hire us more than we hire them. So it's become a great thing.
That's awesome. Um, yeah, and so the way we ended up meeting each other was a restaurant that you did the design for at Santan Village in Gilbert, Arizona. Um, and frankly, we ended up with that job because I cold called you. I heard about the job, saw the permit and or permit application, and I cold called you, and you said you weren't doing the solicitation, but to call the owner. I called the owner. I did a quick interview with them. We turned in a proposal on it, and we ended up winning that job. Um, and then since then, we've gotten several other solicitations from you guys for work. So we must have made an impact to some degree, but that's really my question. Our first question is, as a design firm, I've learned to, you do architecture, but you do so many other things. I don't want to call you just an architect. But when you're looking for new contractors to collaborate with or to present to your clients as potential bidders on their work, what are you looking for? What are you hoping to see? What are you hoping to get? What are strengths that really stand out to you?
Me being a previous builder in my past life, I obviously have much more scrutiny than most other architects when it comes to like vetting out builders, ones that we want to work with and refer. First and foremost, Kevin, we look at a track record. If you don't have a good website or a portfolio that's built on your website, it doesn't seem like you even bother to maintain it. It's a big red flag for us. If your portfolio states that you're really only a dabbler in residential only, and yet you're wanting to bid our commercial projects, another red flag. So those are kind of just dead giveaways and telltale signs. A lot of my own impressions that I get from builders are truly from our conversations we have. It's kind of a likewise thing, right? Me being a younger guy, when people meet me firsthand and then they see all my tattoos, they're like, "Who the heck is this dude?" Most of the time, they do question my intelligence, not only my intelligence to the field that I'm in, it's the intelligence to what I'm speaking to on their end of the interpretation of that work, right? So a lot of times when I'm trying to just find a new builder or find a contractor that we're trying to collaborate with, I'm trying to find someone who's like-minded. They have to be a critical thinker. They have to be innovative. Mainly, like, if you're just reading my plans and not coming up with your own methods out in the field or suggesting an alternative method to doing something that would work and save the client money, you're probably not the best fit for our team. Our team is always trying to think outside of the box, mainly because we're always held within a box. It's a fun thing that we live in, right? We're always under the control of the budget and the schedule and the client's expectations. Most of the builders that we do encounter and work with in the past that were not winners didn't really know how to vet out any of those three, let alone identify them, right? So they leaned a lot on us and our team to essentially be that client stakeholder when we're truly not. We're just the design professional in essence when everyone looks at us in category. We really don't have any authority over any of it. It's just we're just taking what's given to us, transposing it to plans, and hoping you know how to interpret it, right? Well, that's not
the full picture with creative tech. You know that because you've seen our plans, you've worked off of our stuff. We're truly trying to make sure that like it's buildable and it's easy to build as easy as possible. Designers classically run stuff into like the anti-gravity setting of things. And I call it that way because we constantly are hit with like, hey, we need this floating cloud soffit over this area that's like 30 feet. And it's like, cool, well, do you understand what it takes to like suspend a cloud soffit like that, especially when it's open deck scenario, blah, blah, blah. A lot of builders don't even bother getting into those types of conversations on the means and methods. They're just leaning heavily on our drawings, which is great. You can build it that way. But we like the builders, the critical thinkers like you and your team that are truly hitting us with, hey, we saw this in the drawings and we agree that that's per code, but we have a better suggestion. The client's okay with it. Are you guys okay with it? Process is another big thing for us. If we know at the beginning when we're working with the builder that they have their own process that they're following, not having it defined by us or defined by the client, they actually have their own implemented process, that is a huge green flag for me. I only say that because I'm incredibly meticulous with all of our standards and processes that we do in our company. I wrote just about every manual that we have, including the employee handbook, which I don't even know if I'm allowed to do that because I'm not supposed to be all realms, including HR, but I did. Um, so I guess your own skill sets as a builder should define you like pretty simply. And if you don't know how to promote that, that's something that you should focus on because a lot of architects just go straight to a website and they just do their own research off of what you're showing and promoting. Like how do I know someone nowadays without actually talking to you in person or meeting you ever? Like we talked on the phone, I had never actually met you, but just talking to you, I got an actual sense for like your age group, believe it or not. I knew that you were somewhat in the same age range as me, just because of the way that you were talking and how we were speaking projects. Is that a big deal? Not really, but I've spoken to enough professionals in this realm to actually be able to identify now. Like, I didn't know what you looked like. I had no clue you were bigger than I was. Um,
I
I
think you're
thought I'm the
taller than
only
me, though.
monster in the industry, dude. But but like yeah, I had this sense that we would get along off the initial conversation because you were engaging me as where normally in the past where I when I am trying to vet out or find a new builder, I'm the one doing the reaching out. Like I'm trying to find builders that I can put on a bid list or get put together like last minute for a client who absolutely has no clue about the bid process, but they know that we do and they'd rather just throw money at us to take care of it. We get hit with that a lot. Um, I think my biggest factor that I look for in a builder is how readily available are they and how quick do they respond? Because we're in the modus of everyone wants everything yesterday,
Right.
and that's literally the nature of how I've created our my company. Is to be used to that request, the immediacy request. There is no like layered and expedited fees behind what we do because everything we do is expedited naturally. And I get a feeling that your team and you are kind of similar, whether you like it or not.
To a point, yeah. It's hard. There's a balance between being quick and responsive and being reactive and proactive. And I think, if we can stay responsive, but not be reactionary the whole time, that's where we win. That's where we do really, really well. And I think, one thing that stuck out to me initially on the first set of drawings of yours that I looked at was the industry has a lot of scenarios where it says verify and field, verify and field. Um, Yours has less.
Yep.
And I think part of that, and I learned that after we did a couple projects, was um, you guys come out and you do more than a lot do. Like you scan the whole space. You have a good as built of existing conditions. Now there's always things that you can't get to. You're not getting above hard lids and stuff like that. But what you have done, the way that your team works, is you remove so much of that. And when you remove the verify and field, we don't have questions that we know are going to come, and we have to react quickly when we get there. Because when it says verify in field, the onus is on us to build it and still follow the schedule, because we know there's something there unknown, but it's our responsibility to figure it out and plan it. And that
Yeah,
becomes
you're
a
also
challenge
not
again.
ever given enough time to verify in field. You're typically kicked off permit issuance. You're told to go pull permit and start demo or start build.
Right.
Yeah, verifying in field is not only a meticulous note that we try and avoid on our plans, we don't really need to do any of those verifications if we were hired to do them ourselves. That's probably the hardest push to our clients, though, in the industry. Everyone seems to forget that as-built is probably one of the most important phases of the project. Not only does it affect everything that we do in design, but it affects the accuracy of what you're executing in the field. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no one field verified plans that were done in the 1970s, and there was X amount of non-permanent work over those decades. Who's to know what you're working on?
Right.
A lot of challenges that we face on our end is just convincing the client how important it is to as-built verify their building. And why is that difficult? It's because most of the time when a client purchases a property or signs a lease, they're given drawings to that space, right? And told, here you go, you should be able to work off of these and get a permit. Now, you know as well as I do that the biggest word that's abused in our industry is the word of should, right? Everything is just an assumption that it will work until it doesn't. And then all of a sudden everyone backs on the whole, well, I said it should, not it would. Um, we're all about trying to define truly, like, we want to limit the number of should and actually give you definitive would, which is a funny thing. The should versus would conversation and scenario is very important because a lot of industry professionals, builders, engineers, and architects alike, if you listen to their conversations on a daily basis or they're talking about design or the potentiality of something, a risk involved, a design feature, how many times are they saying that it will be this way definitively or it would be this way versus, yeah, that should work or it should be that? How do you get rid of the should? You just have to definitively know what you're drawing against and how you do that. So that's kind of our conversation we have with our clients. It's like, how many shoulds do you want in your project versus woulds? And everyone's like, well, would is still a possibility. I'm like, it's more definitive though than a should. A should is an assumption.
Yeah.
As soon as they understand that, then we get more into the whole conversation. Look, your drawings are 7 years old. Do you want us to work off of those? If you do, we're happy to do so. You're just going to assume all of the risk of the accuracy of those plans and that information that we're interpreting. And you're going to carry over that risk to your builder. That's typically how we play it to the client. And once they start playing that word risk in their head and they're like, well, I don't want to carry anything over to the builder and I'd rather you guys assume the risk. So they start weighing the risk in their head, and then they look at our dollar amount of what the as-built is, which is typically incredibly minuscule over the cost of the contract, especially if it's local work. We don't charge travel on any of our local work, so it's all just like at cost.
Right.
As soon as they see that, they go, okay, yeah, we'll just do the as-built because from then on, we're essentially as a team guaranteeing our accuracy. We can't guarantee the success of your project because there's too many factors involved beyond as-builts that can completely run it south, but we can definitely guarantee like successful initial phases, like initiation phase, the planning phase, and the execution phase of the drawings. Those can all be guaranteed. We can give you durations set in stone for how long it'll take us, as long as we know that we were able to as-built it. If we weren't able to as-built it and you want us to trace it and do all that stuff, time goes up, cost goes up. It's kind of weird. Most people think that as-builting costs them more. But in the flip side, how many
Yeah.
times have you done projects where you had to verify so many things in field and the change orders just stacked up because of it? Like it's not a cost savings in the end. And a lot of times our job as a consultant is to educate our client as they approach that, like before they get hit with it, hey, you guys should probably look into spending a couple extra dollars now on the pre-planning side of it before you get hit with this later. That project that you mentioned earlier that we first worked on at Gilbert, that's kind of a case in point on it because the client, I don't want to get too far in details because I know you already had your own podcast on it when you're talking about it, but that client asked me for discounts after the fact. We had already discounted the whole contract. And I told him the only way that we were going to discount it was by actually eliminating critical services that are typically required on every job, which is construction administration. It's that whole process post permit where you, the builder, has a ton of questions because you've never worked off of our plans or worked with the client. And it's our job under CA, under contract, to answer those. I can completely eliminate those services though if the client agrees that they're just going to work it out with you and then hire us on an hourly rate for CA services if they have to get us involved. So, how far south did that project go without CA services? Incredibly,
Yeah.
right?
That kind of
Didn't
leads
build
like
that
right into
job.
the next. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. We also didn't as built that job. So,
Well, this whole
um,
like conversation's kind of leading into my next question for you, and you've already answered it to a point, but I think like there's more to it. But to make the question known is what early design decisions have the biggest impact on outcomes, commercial construction outcomes, and that as-builting does a huge thing. And like one thing that I don't know if you talk about this with your clients, but it's very real to us is as a general contractor, time is money. Like we're burning thousands of dollars every single day on a lot of these jobs just in general conditions and general requirements. And then if you add liquidated damages for some clients, or even if there's not liquidated damages, but their actual cost of delayed opening, like your cost to as built a building, however many thousands of dollars it is, it's not a ton of money, but whatever it is in my mind the best thing to do every single time. Because
we
if
have
I
fixed
have
costing across everything we do, Kevin. So.
you, what's that?
We don't ever charge differentiated costs. We hit every project with fixed costing. It's typically a certain amount of square footage and a certain amount of dollar amount. It's every time. So I try and do that in fairness. But yeah, I agree with you. It's pennies on the dollar when the ultimate end goal or the end result was them saving I don't know how much money on the change order side of it.
Yeah.
Um,
But what I'm talking about is like if we have a dimension discrepancy, we go
right.
in, we built up. If you didn't do as builts, but you went off of the shell and core as built or the previous as builts that they have, a dimension bust of an inch or two can bring the project to a halt
Yep.
if we're waiting for an answer. If we get there and we're laying out and we do demo and then we go lay out, well, layout's where we find that dimension bust. Well, the next activity is to start framing it. But if we can't start framing it, we spend a week or 2 weeks waiting for an answer. We lost a week or 2 weeks. That's a week or 2 weeks of rent for the owner. That's a week or 2 weeks of general conditions and general requirements that we have to spend. It impacts all sorts of things. And so the
Yep.
dollars add up super fast. But um, I don't know. Along with that, what other early design decisions have a big impact on commercial construction? I can name a bunch, but I'm sure you really would like to talk to it.
Yeah, I mean the biggest ones are truly the biggest ones. It would be anything related to heavy equipment, so like HVAC systems, if they're replacing or updating any of that stuff, roof work, anything major and structural. I like to call it the long lead time items, or the ones that have the biggest impact on construction. Not really even just on commercial. I think it's in both realms, really. Because when you're talking about like on residential, if you have a huge amount of expansion work you're doing, that heavy lumber, trusses, prefab, anything on that has long lead times. So the long lead times or long lead time items are probably the biggest drivers to what can cause impacts like design decision impacts early. And that's because a lot of times people aren't thinking about how long it takes to get something ordered, let alone selected. So essentially, there's a whole through the design process. It's not just okay, I want a brand new curtain wall. We have to go through what type of glass you want, what kind of mullions you want, where does the glass set within that frame system, at the outside, the center, or the in. How many mullions do you have, horizontal versus vertical? What is like your low E factor? I mean, you get really far into the weeds on just asking simple questions about a curtain wall. That back and forth with most clients who are not educated on that can take a week just to discuss what they want out of a system. And then you do the selection process, right? You have to find the provider that provides everything per those specs, and it has to be fabricated within that chunk of lead time of what they're allotting for the schedule. So I would say anything with a long lead time that's identified at the beginning in the new scope, if the consultant is not advising that client like right away, hey, by the way, brand new curtain wall systems or new HVAC could take a while for you guys to actually get
Oh yeah.
fabricated and delivered on site, it can definitely have a major impact on the whole design, because we've had clients literally back out of a large amount of their major stuff that they were doing because they ended up getting lead times after the fact, like when we were in for permit, and realized that they were going to go well beyond their schedule for their opening date. And they had us reverse engineer during permit review and do value engineering, which
Oh wow.
is obviously just something that we do. But yeah, so structural steel, imported materials. Anytime you're ordering, tile from Italy, that stuff's definitely going to impact
Yeah.
design, especially if you're putting it all over the space. If you're cladding it in a whole bunch of like custom millwork or cabinetry, highly custom graphics, signage, all that stuff. Um, I think that those are the biggest impacts. So anything with long lead times would be the biggest impact on commercial projects for me, in my experience.
Yeah, and I think like from my experience adding to that, the challenges that we run into are like if electrical's not coordinated with equipment, which we've run into before, or if it's deferred submittals that like the curtain wall is a good example of that, where you have to have engine. It's not a deferred submittal, but it's engineering that goes with it. And if it's not defined, it becomes a problem. And yeah, and an important piece that I've definitely missed in the past and learned from is, um, you got to give time for your team to do the review. And I always plan for 2 review cycles. I hope that we don't have to, but I plan for 2. Like if it's a 2-week turnaround time, I actually plan 5 weeks for that submittal. Once to get it in, get an initial review, get comments back, get it revised and get it resubmitted, and still give your team time to plan and not be reactionary. Um, and I'm not shy when I'm behind and I say, hey, can you move this one to the top and let the other ones go? Most of the time, architects and your team as well is willing to do that. But, you know, add 5 weeks to every submittal, every item. You start drawing things out. That front end time is pretty important. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
See, another reason right there is why we like so much is because when we do we always try. The problem is the client always just wants to hear that final date. They don't really care about all the chunk ends and the stuff that get you there. They just want to know, okay, here we are today. When are you going to be done and getting me
Right,
things then?
right.
But yeah, I'm 100% on board with what you're talking about as well. It's anything that requires lengthy discussion or longer review beyond what would be a standard jurisdictional review or client review. Like my team, if we have under contract that will review shop drawings, that would instigate a ton of extra review time if they start coming at us going, we want custom curtain walls and custom millwork, everything that's going to have shop drawings coming with it. So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, it's definitely important to look at that kind of stuff. But I think the longest lead time items are the hardest ones to identify in the beginning. I mean, how do you go about that? Unless your client truly knows everything that they want, which never happens. Normally I call it a design charrette, right? It's a lot of questions of, cool, well, what's your budget? That's the first question I ask, because we can talk all day long about your dreams, but if your budget ain't there, you're not going to ever meet your dreams. But most of the time, I don't think clients truly understand the full spectrum of their scope. all the way up until you're doing the executing of it and building it. And then they're like, oh, wait a minute. I don't know if I want that. Or maybe I want to change this.
Yeah.
Uh, it
I want
happens a
this
lot.
person to sit next to that person, so let's reconfigure.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah. I
what?
don't
We need
want
to do
that
that
four top
6 months
table
ago.
there. I want it 3 inches to the left. It has to be
Right.
there.
Right. Yeah. I think we could talk for hours about stuff like that and real
Sure.
circumstances,
Yeah.
but we don't need to today. So, one thing I talk about all the time is friction and reducing friction. And I don't know why that word specifically. What are some instances in your experience where friction came about and you're like, this is avoidable, or this contractor, the way they do things, like you talked about processes. So lack of process would be friction that your team is coming up against. But what are
Yeah.
some other examples of things, my goal, honestly, like I want to be your favorite contractor, and the other architecture firms that we work with, I want to be their favorite contractor. I want to be top of mind. What are ways that we reduce friction for you?
I mean, aside from the things that I was talking about on what we look for, I actually like your use of the word friction. Me being a contractor in a different life, I've always heard it as, you're on one side of the fence or the other, right?
Yeah.
What happens when there is no fence as far as it comes to like my realm, because I have a heavy background in construction and a heavier one in architecture now. So I don't definitively even see a defining line between our industries. I see AEC as one industry as a whole. It's architecture, engineering, and construction, in case anyone listening doesn't know AC. Um, so I like the term friction because for some reason it's there, and yet it really shouldn't be. And why should it be there? I like using that word should too. I'm an architect. So why it shouldn't be there is truly because as a professional, I have in my own cause and right mind to try and educate people who aren't educated or need to be educated in the realm of what we're doing. That could be a client being incompetent and not wanting to listen, or it could be a fully competent client thinking that they know everything and they're just not listening to alternative ideas. Um, so, to reduce friction between professionals, between a builder and an architect, I constantly encourage this just on my own realm, but I encourage it to any other professional is get out there and learn. Like if you don't know how to swing the hammer and you don't even understand the details that you're providing on the plans, except for like the base or generics of it, because you've done it 100 times, but you've never actually seen people out there in the field using RAM sets and plugging your ears to those 22 cal pop-offs, like all of that stuff is it's a breathing experience. It's a true life experience that you should have. And how do you get that? Well, you have to have a good relationship with your builder. If you hate all your builders and they hate you, do you think they're ever going to invite you out to the job site? I mean, you can go out, but without their invite, you would have to show up with full clearance of someone else, that whole thing. So, ultimately, to reduce friction, my opinion is architects really need to lean on their field professionals more, because right now the friction is we're professionals that have our own idea of how it should be done and how you should swing your hammer, and then on the builder's realm is all of these architects are just people who sit at a desk drawing on paper and never actually know how to get out there and do this stuff. I am one of those people who's trying to break that whole like friction between it, because we do get out there. We probably get out there more than 100% of the other architects out there. I wanted to say less than 100, but I know the industry we're in. Most of the other teams that we work with, they hire us to go out to the field. They don't go because they can hire our team because they know we go. What do we gain from it? We gain experience every time we go out there. Whether
Yeah.
we're meeting a builder like you and learning something new, or we're actually self-educating ourselves by being out there in the field and seeing something different. Like, oh my God, I don't think I've ever seen a transform suspended with that type of unistrut before, or something like that. Like, we're self-educating, but the only way that we're able to do that and understand your side of that fence is to actually be out there. So, and the same flip of the coin is if builders are wanting to reduce friction with their architects, they should look more at their architect as who are they as a professional, right? If they truly are that person sitting at a desk, there's really not much saving them. I know this because I was one of those people for a long time. I forgot about my construction background and did nothing but desk work for years. Um, so that desk person really needs to like be an educator as well. If that's all they're going to do is sit at a desk. Contractors have means and methods. We lean on you guys to actually figure it out in the field and execute it accordingly. As long as you're following the design guidelines, the proposed design of our plans, and the code compliance, it's kind of just like you do you, is what architects try and say, and that's not how we're about it. We'd like to be involved in the project with you, not in a hand holding approach either. It's a we will guide you if you come to us for that guidance, right? Otherwise, we're not going to try stepping on your toes or even hitting you with like design addenda that aren't fully like approved and vetted out with the client yet. So like a lot of the headache and friction that causes turmoil between architects and builders that I've experienced over the past 20 years is truly the lack of communication. No joke. Everyone's like, what do you
Yeah.
mean lack of communication? I'm like, well, everyone hides behind emails. You and I mean, our initial conversation, you called me. I had no clue who you were,
Yeah.
but we had an hour-long conversation
Oh yeah.
because I was trying to figure you out. And now every time we have phone calls, we'll talk business and then we'll shoot the shit. Pardon my French, but
Yeah.
we'll just BS for like a good half hour. I think I've been on calls with you for close to an hour, just BSing, and that's great
Yeah.
because we talk about the industry and how we're both in rooms that seem so disconnected from each other, and yet you and I are working cohesively to try and change that. I think the friction can be reduced amongst other professionals, not like you and me, but maybe they could watch us and we'll lead by example. But you educate me and my team. In fact, we ask you questions when we're dealing with stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, when you've given us RFIs in the past, I haven't seen a single RFI from you direct that didn't have a suggestion for how to resolve it. And normally it was our suggestion. We were already replying, and yeah, that sounds great, Kevin. You're good to go. We need to drive keeping everyone educated on both ends of the spectrum. It's like I need to try and make sure that hey, Phoenix just adopted brand new code. I don't know if you're aware of it, but it affects you on like EV charging stations and stuff like that. Why does that matter on any project we're working on? It doesn't, but it makes you a little bit more in tune with something that Justin knows, right? It's a vice versa thing. It's share your knowledge and reduce the friction, I think, is my opinion on it.
Yeah, I like that. And my reason for suggestions on RFIs, it's a little bit self-serving. If I ask you an RFI, if I ask you a question, an RFI, about the plans and how something's supposed to be done, or there's a discrepancy, and if I just say, hey, this isn't what I was expecting or isn't what's in the drawings, what do you want me to do? Your response is, well, I need 1,000 pictures. I need a phone call to walk through it. We need to have a meeting, or I need to come to site and we need to schedule it. And I can't get there till next week. And I can be there Wednesday. And I say Wednesday doesn't work. I need Thursday. Well, now we've lost a week. I don't want that. And I constantly think, I swear I say it to the point it is painful. Like, let's focus on what's right, not who's right. And that goes into like just everything. There's apparent solutions. And if we're the ones sitting there looking at it, if we're really looking at the problem, we see solutions. And I'm not going to suggest to you the hardest, most difficult, most expensive solution. I'm going to suggest the one that's right. And I actually do think about functionality and usability and long-term service life. And I mean, it's not stupid, silly things like, how are we going to access these filters to ever change them? Because I can't tell you how many spaces we've gone in and demoed, and it's like the filter in the air handler is 15 years old. It's never been changed, and it's never been changed because no one can get to it. And it's like, that's awful for everyone. But somebody didn't ask a question. Someone just looked at it and said, hey, it's there. That's where it said to put it. I don't care. That's their problem. And I refuse to do that. So that makes all of us look bad. So
Delaying issue, the whole thing, the schedule impact of us on response, the impact you probably more than they impact my team. While we have to go through it and figure out maybe it's redesigned, maybe it's not. We're just sorting that out. Meanwhile, you have actual hours set aside for contractors per day. And if that stuff's not getting done, it's all a backlog. And
Yep.
it all becomes incredibly nightmarish. I only know that and understand it because I used to be a builder, right? And that's why we actually work so well with our builders, is because most of our builders who come at us are like, you guys are not a normal architecture group, are you? What is it that's different about you guys? I'm like, hand me that hammer and I'll show you how to frame that wall. Like, that's kind of our attitude. We're not allowed to do it anymore thanks to our liability clauses. But I agree with you. It's as simple as just placing an access panel in a solid gyp ceiling so that you can change out filters on a unit. That type of critical thinking is critical. Most people would call it small or minuscule, but that is the critical side of that type of thinking. Is like, in my realm, Kevin, I'm very used to encountering professionals that are only thinking this much outside of the box, right? But they still remain and know that they're in the box. We try and think outside of the box. You can't even see my range, it's beyond this view, but we try and think well outside of the box, knowing that the box is somewhere over there, but we're never like going back into it, if that makes sense. So our mode of critical thinking is like field approved methods that have worked in the past. We implement and apply that on all future work, right? We try and learn from our mistakes. It's not that difficult, but for some reason, ownership and accountability is never something that's ever held anymore. Not only in our industry, but it seems that way just across the board. Everyone just likes to point fingers rather than holding accountability. If I had just went ahead and said, oh yeah, you're right, we put the wrong detail in your sheet and you should have followed this one, not only does that admit that it was the wrong detail, it clears up that confusion, it holds my team accountable, and then you get to see how quickly we correct it, right? It gives me that opportunity to make a wrong a right by holding myself accountable. If I don't hold myself accountable, then I'm never learning from my mistakes. I'm probably getting worse with everything that I'm doing because I'm just gonna just shove it off to somebody else. It's very crazy though. So the friction word is a fun word. I when I saw the question when you guys typed it to me, I'm like, that's actually a great word. And for some reason, I think it's the best word to use because it's not necessarily tension, right? Yeah. Even if you have an architect you're not getting along with, once you guys meet on site, you're shaking hands, you know that you're still trying to work through it. So friction is a good one because there's some weird, just always ever present thing there between our industries where there's an immediate assumption that like I'm just a desk jockey and I don't know anything and you guys are just hammer swinging grunts, right? And that for some reason is the mindset that I've been told coming into the industry. Oh, by the way, all builders are going to be this way. I've been told that by old hat architects and all the people I trained under. Oh, just a heads up, all GCs are this way. None of them are different. Like, that's what I was told. So I had this level set of expectation of, well, maybe I shouldn't get my hopes up because everyone's telling me they're all the same, right? And I went like that for years. But then I started hearing from my builder buddies them going, oh, you're an architect? You're that a-hole? Like, and I'm like, wait a minute, what are you guys hearing about architects? And that's when I started realizing that there was this weird friction that I just got pulled into. And now that I'm able to run things and do things differently, like I don't like to say that we're changing our standard of architecture, but we do it differently enough to constantly be in the spotlight by all of our competitors. We are not only in the spotlight of them watching what we're doing, but they're hiring us because they know that for some reason whatever we're doing not only works, but it's more efficient than what they have implemented. They can't get it. I'm happy to.
Do you ever think that they're trying to steal some of your ideas when they hire you and like your process is like, hey, this is working for them, so we're going to hire them so we can do it ourselves?
I don't think it. I know it. I've witnessed us teaching clients on a whole program for like what we were doing, educated them too much on our processes and everything, and all of a sudden we weren't in the program anymore. Does it chat my hide? Does it bug me? No, Because I think in the end, in my hindsight, in my mind, if they're implementing my processes, I at least now know they're doing it better than how they were doing it before.
There you go.
And the end result, the end goal in my PM brain is all projects that get done, like to completion, as long as they were under budget, they don't really need to be on time. They need to be under budget most of the time. If they were under budget, it's a screaming success of a job. Like, and if I was involved on it, great. I get to take credit for it. But if I know that my process was involved on it to get it to that point of success, and my company didn't get hired to do it, but I still know deep down that they were using our process, still a win for me. Because I know that I made another team out there that wasn't so good better, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great question. Do I ever get offended by it? I mean, I don't like when people steal from me in general, but it's a much slower steal over like 4 or 5 months, especially when they're hiring us and contracting us to do the work. We had in the contract that we would be consulting them as well through the process. So I guess in retrospect, I already worded it that we'd be giving them that training and process, but it doesn't ever shock me when it happens. It doesn't. I think it's everyone's like, oh, you sound like you're numb to it. I'm like, no, it's actually partially expected. I'm only going to be able to teach someone so much until all of a sudden they're like, well, I know way more than you now, Justin. I'm going to go off and start my own company. Very
Go
possible. But yeah, it's a whole go for it attitude. It's like if you've only been listening to my advice and haven't actually seen the grind for the past 5 years, like best of luck. But yeah, I don't take offense to anything. I used to take everything personally in work, Kevin, which really held my work to a solid golden quality standard. But like at the end of the day, I was overly stressed, and I realized at the very end of the day, the client didn't care at all whether or not I really put extra time into the selection of a water heater. So I started taking it and going, I really care about the success of the project, but it's no longer like a personal vendetta thing to make sure that everything's successful. So failure happens. It's a natural order to things. I'll do my best to prevent it, but it does happen.
Yeah, nice. So just continuing along that path though, like it just kind of rolls into it. What do you think if we said the biggest thing that we could fix or biggest disconnect between, again, not sides, but like architects, contractors, and owners? And I mean, you could expand into the AHJs and landlords and tenants and all sorts of things. What's the biggest hurdle that you think that you see we could overcome? The biggest disconnect?
Yeah, I kind of was talking about it previously, but it's really just like a design addenda, is what we like to call it. So a client comes up with a potential idea to change something after the plans have already been developed to a certain extent. And we already have approvals at those certain phases. Case in point, if we do a large project, there will be multiple phase submittals on the progress of those plans. We do a 30%, a 65%, 75, 90%, and then 100, however they want to break it up. But it's a progress phase submittal. So each phase has a review, comment, and approval process from the client. So what does that do? Well, it helps us lock in that scope that we've built and the amount of time that we've put in up until that phase, and say, hey, look, up until this date, we were approved to go this route, if that makes sense. A lot of times design addenda will be discussed at a higher level, and the designer or architect will not be kept in the loop. It's just forgotten or missed. I don't know how many times this has happened to us, but it's a lot. And we are constantly hit with stuff where it's either during construction, post-permit approval, or during permit plan review that we'll get hit with some gnarly email of paragraph after paragraph of design changes that need to be implemented, whether it's a brand standard driven thing or just one of the higher ups, the CEO, when I don't like the look of our stores anymore and decides to just change it all. We don't really understand the why, but the impact is super strong, because when it comes across our way, if we weren't aware of the changes and
they state, hey, we've already notified the construction team that this is the path moving forward, so you need to now update your drawings. The project just became a design build project at that point because you're already in the middle of building it, and now you have to change things, and you're asking us for direction on what to change, and we're still trying to figure out what did change, right? So that can cause major issues. So I think the biggest disconnect, again, hits this on the head, and I love this word the most, is communication. It's just truly just like talk to every professional. My biggest realm of how I make sure I'm communicating to everyone is I'll run through my head the list of people that I'm constantly talking to on the high level of a project. Who are all the stakeholders involved, right? I got Kevin as a builder. I got John Smith as stakeholder one. I got his wife because they're franchisees as stakeholder two. We're a stakeholder, right? I have to make sure that I have all those people in my mind, especially if it's a high level change thing like that. And then I start calling people. Why do I call versus email? Well, it's because how quickly do you respond to emails? Most people don't respond incredibly fast to emails. Phone calls, though, you're either choosing to ignore it because you just don't want to talk to me, or you're truly not available. Otherwise, you're answering the call because you know that I don't make phone calls typically to just horse around. I'm always calling about business. Unless it's you and me, Kevin, then we'll BS for a while afterwards. But I don't normally make just random phone calls to just joke around or just not be serious. So
Yeah.
most people who work with me know that. They go, crap, I got Justin call me. This has got to be something serious. And I'm glad I've put that mindset into people, right? I don't want you to pick up the phone unless you know for some reason something's going on. It can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. I've hit our clients, builders, and engineers and architects that we work with alike with the honesty and hard truth of all of it. And I've found that my transparency has actually gotten me more wins than it's gotten me major headaches and losses. Even
Yeah.
when it was nothing but problems on my team's end, as well as like delay to schedule and impacting construction. Like as soon as they heard what was going on, they were able to breathe because then they had clarity on
I
why things were.
imagine I imagine that one of the things that's really tough for you is contractors' brains work a little bit differently than architects do, than a lot of people in other professions do. I would imagine that as you get questions and emails and whatever from contractors, more often than it not, it's okay, I need more information to answer this. I don't have everything I need to acknowledge what the issue is. And so like the rule of three that people talk about with like email, like if it's more than three emails back and forth, just call them. I learned that a long time ago. I believe in that. I'm phone call first. I'd rather call you and talk on the phone, work through a problem, and then confirm in writing. Yeah,
To close out the conversation of what was discussed, especially if it's just a verbal between two people and it requires other people to know what's going on. Definitely follow up, but
I
be
can't imagine
immediate.
though trying to do everything that you guys do via email because you would just constantly be like, okay, I need more information. You
I
asked
mean,
me
you've
for
seen
this,
my
but what
emails.
about?
I don't type short emails. I'm normally explaining a lot. I would say half of what I type in my email is either not read by the recipient or completely just missed, right? They read it, but for some reason their brain didn't process that other half. So over the years, I've found ways to be more etiquette efficient in my email by figuring I'll type out the whole thing and it's like 4 paragraphs and I'll look at it and try and restructure it and break it down as simple as possible, and I'll only do that based upon the audience, if that makes any sense. If I historically am sending an email to a recipient who has continuously not read the full email or asked questions where I fully explained it already in the email, like I send them lighter emails as we move forward in our relationship. Does that change anything behind our services? No. In fact, it actually makes things a little better because I start to really understand the client or the recipient more, and whether they know it or not, like they don't like to read a whole lot or they don't even like typing full sentences in response, like that all is something that educates me on the level of communication that you're used to giving and you're used to receiving, right? So I try and like level set and balance out a little bit and meet you on those same terms at the beginning. But
Sure.
over time, if you're working with us and you're needing our consulting, you'll find that communication is probably one of our biggest virtues that we have in our company. I mean, we constantly are communicating it. I have already had 2 conversations with my business partner before this phone call is today, and he's in California. He has no need to be really even talking to me about anything. But this is how much we communicate. That's why I said I'm happy to join a podcast. I'll join another one if you want to invite me another one. We can have more conversations. Just because talking is the only way to actually figure stuff out. It helps you sort out problems, friction, discrepancies between what we've designed and what you're building, confusion behind what you've been hearing for the past X amount of weeks or months from the brand, and then compared to what you're now seeing and drawing. Like, communication is that one thing. If you don't have good communication, everything else is going to cause disconnect and friction. Everything.
Yep. And it's going to slow down, and it's going to cost more, and there's going to be corners cut and sacrifices made, and
no one likes those hard phone calls. No one likes making them or receiving them, right? It's tough for both parties. The problem, though, is most of the time those calls aren't made because the person trying to make the call is too scared or nervous of that end result. They don't like that pressure or stress, so they just send an email instead.
Yeah.
How many times have you encountered an email where you were like, I wish you would have called me about this? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, because now it's done, and I didn't see it for a day or 2 days or something, and
we just didn't have the chance to discuss this before we shared it with the rest of the team. That kind of thing.
And that point about the bad news doesn't always happen, or that phone call or communication doesn't happen. I worked with a superintendent here in Phoenix. He's retired now, but he was famous for saying bad news doesn't get better with time. And I think that's a pretty important thing. Like, yeah, it's going to suck to say it, and it's going to suck to hear it, but waiting till tomorrow or next week or not saying it at all isn't going to make it better. It's probably going to make it worse. So, yeah. So I guess on the flip side of things, what's something that you've caught yourself doing, your team doing, or other architects in your past that, like, they're just misses or something that gets overlooked in drawings, and then they go out to bid, they go out to permit, they go out to construction. It's like, gosh, we got to fix that. Are there anything that's like a consistent, it's happened and happened and happened, or the industry allows it to happen?
One of them that's well out of our control is just the non-invasive nature of how we verify spaces. The biggest discovery of issues occurs at demolition phase.
Yeah.
It's a historical thing on projects small and where they found plumbing pipe in a wall that shouldn't have been there, to 100,000 square foot mall where columns are 16 inches off of it. Significant stuff. So I think ultimately what we are constantly missing as professionals is stuff that we've hit on in the past. It's our education, the field names and methods, what the construction schedule is. More often than not, Kevin, we're not shared your schedule. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the builders. Typically, that we worked with in the past don't share their schedule with us, which is weird, right? You would think that like we would want to know like when phases are going on, especially if we have like site visits layered into the contract. We kind of need to know your schedule so we're not just showing up during drywall hanging day or something like that.
Well, even just like the non-invasive nature, like you just said, of field visits, but like verification before you start design. Like, I know if there's a acoustical ceiling and then there's a hard ceiling, when we demo hard ceiling, I better be all over that looking for issues, because you could not have possibly verified. And I don't do that for me. I do that for everybody, because I know that there's a constraint here, there's an issue that made it impossible for you to go up overhead. But like I expect that you went above acoustical ceilings and took pictures. But I know for a fact you didn't in hard lids.
Dude, if we can get up there and we will. The non-invasive nature is cutting a hole where there isn't
Right.
one. Uh, Stuff like that you would typically do. Like if it's considered demolition or material removal, we can't really touch it.
Right.
Even though I know how. I have a
Yeah.
keyhole saw. I can't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we because we have a non-invasive nature to what we verify, we're limited to what we're able to verify. It's just truly at surface, which is that true as built? Not necessarily. I think the way to fully as built, 100% as built something is to do a pre-demo survey of the build out of the space, the actual tenant improvement and remodel. If it's a full standalone building, do the whole damn building. And then you do a post demo as built. So once you've ripped away and removed all that surface material and you're able to see the actual infrastructure of the building, then we come back out and re-verify just those systems. We're not needing to spatially verify anything, but we need to come back out and take a look at what was above ceiling so you're not having to. That process, which we've been hired to do a lot in the past, post demo as builts, eliminates the verify and field notes from the entire set because we've done 2 sets of verifications prior to you ever really even seeing anything, right? But
It's
yeah,
important.
I think that's incredibly important. I think understanding not only your guys' construction schedule, but the fact of like the process of what a builder goes through is completely this mode with most architects. We obviously don't have that issue because we have our builder background, but what I mean by that is like you guys daily are not just doing like one job, you're coordinating across multiple subcontractors for who should be there on site that day, as well as the rest of your week, if not the following week, based upon your schedule. So you have multiple surveyor or multiple contractor dispatch. You have multiple things to deal with for each contractor, what their tasks at hand are, if they're up to date on payment or not. Like that whole nine impacts all of what you guys are dealing with. Most of the architects I work with could care less. They just don't. And what I mean by that is when you send an RFI to one of those guys, they will hold to the standard of we're going to give you 2 to 3 business days to respond to this RFI, even if it's as easy as picking up the phone and giving you an answer. We're going to pull it to 2 to 3 business days each time. And that greatly impacts builders. We know that.
Hmm.
So even though it's a standard for turnaround time frame, we try and do it same day, if not the very next day, on all responses. And we've seen major successes out of it. Not only are builders happy, but the schedule stays on track by some miracle, right?
Well,
So,
numerous design partners in the past that I've worked with, it's, hey, we have a coordination meeting, an OAC meeting on Tuesdays. Well, Monday afternoon, we get 15 RFIs responded to and 6 submittals returned. And then the meeting happens Tuesday. We don't get anything again until the following Monday. Not everyone's that way. You guys aren't that way. We have another architect that we're doing a project with right now that I actually emailed him. I'm like, I am surprised how quick you are because, like, I really appreciate when I see RFI responses in a day or two, not a week or two. Um, and there's some of them where it's like, hey, this is a complicated scenario. We have to go survey. We have to do this. Like, there's engineering involved. Like, those come up. And the good design partners for us are the ones that say, hey, this is going to take a little bit of time. So, um, I always like that. So, this is a question I've thought about a lot. I get asked this. As you work through the life cycle of design in a project from initial like concept to permits are ready to go, um, could you define or is there a point in time that you think is best to bring a contractor on?
yeah, I mean, I think all professionals that are involved in a project would be identified as the stakeholders. A lot of people don't really understand the term stakeholder truly, but if I'm holding a stake in an investment to receive and achieve the same outcome accumulatively with other stakeholders, I'm truly a stakeholder on the project. That doesn't mean I'm necessarily the client.
Hmm.
We still invest our own time and our own money into it in order to get that end result, right? For our contract services. Like,
on the upfront. My company probably sets in 70% of its contract overhead all on the upfront, and then we bill it out at the end. So ultimately, I think on phases, as phases go, in a project, there's 5 primary phases. There's the initiation phase, which is truly the very beginning. That's right when an RFP is going out. They're identifying stakeholders. The architect works out a budget, possibly a preliminary schedule, stuff like that. Initiation is very important. I think if it's a large scale project, the builder should probably be involved at the very beginning at initiation phase. Like as soon as contract is executed between the architect and the client, if the builder is already selected, because most of the time on large commercial jobs they are, because they're a pre-selected team or pre-qualified team,
Mm-hmm.
um, we would want to get their input. I say we as my team, like we would want to get your input on anything that we would be approaching towards new scope, right? Before we actually even hit pen to paper, so to speak. Like so initiation at the very beginning of the project on large scale projects should be totally involved with the builder at that point, like probably the first few weeks into the job. Now, if you're dealing with smaller tenant improvement projects that are design prototyped, like brand prototype definitive, um, and you've already done a whole bunch of them, like in a rollout phase or something like that, and the builder is never selected until it's time to go in for permit, how do you get the builder involved beforehand, right? Ideally, in smaller jobs, you would want the builder to be involved during the planning phase because planning is all of the design development and the schematic phasing for the work that would be
Mm-hmm.
produced into construction documentation. Um, we, my team, I want the builder involved as soon as possible. I'm just never granted the opportunity to even meet the builder until like we've already submitted in for permit or even after permit's been approved. I have done projects before, Kevin, where we never met the builder once. We never heard from him. Like we were just told by the client because it was a rollout program. So we're just told by the client, oh, by the way, Irvine, California is approved for permit and the builder's already been selected and they're moving forward. We'll let you know if we have any questions. And we don't hear anything ever again after that.
Hmm.
I guess project successful, right? Like no news is good news, but
Yeah.
like that right there is a good thing about getting communication. I don't think that there's really any like too early scenario for a builder to be involved as long as the scope, right, is identified as like this needs multiple heads involved in it. That's I guess that's where you guys would need to come in. I'd like to get builders involved as soon as possible. I just never get to actually even meet you guys unless I'm involved in the ITB, the invitation to bids, and I'm doing the selection process. It's really just once we have permit, I'm finally meeting the building team, and then we're hearing their design input, which is
Yeah.
definitely a little bass backwards. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like that. I mean, it depends, and that's okay. So
yeah, it
like
does.
the franchise rollout, that makes a lot of sense, but some of the other ones where there's, it's occupied campus or there's something funny going on and like logistics are super important to it and sequencing is important and uh yeah, that makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense. So I
you
agree with
may
everything you said.
have operational familiarity, right, to a large campus or a large development that we're just getting involved on. We may have national campus experience on similar or like campuses, but not
Hmm.
one in particular. And you as the builder might know a lot of like ins and outs of what we can and can't do that would affect our design or our phasing for that.
Yeah.
Input is definitely crucial and critical, especially on large scale
Yeah.
or projects that don't involve all stakeholders at the beginning are just kind of setting themselves up for more chances of failure than mistakes and possibly
Yeah.
failure.
I think
It's
I
like
think you turn it
sports. Everyone playing one.
well,
All
it's
the
almost
players are
like you're turning the construction into a commodity versus a service.
yeah,
Like you want a service, you don't want a commodity. You don't want just something you can go buy. Um, not if you want it to go well and focus on your day job. That's the client. So if you run restaurants, like focus on restaurants. Um, if you turn it into a commodity and then something changes, then you have issues you're dealing with. So there's lots to think about and talk about there. But anyway, um, so budget, value engineering is kind of a tough thing. It can be a tough thing. There's spots it makes a lot of sense. Sometimes it's just cutting scope. But in your experience, like where a project's trending over budget or you get to design phase and the initial estimate says it's over budget, what are some of the areas are there areas that you look at for cutting cost first?
Yeah.
Or,
VE is very funny also to me. I kind of mentioned it earlier, but so value engineering, for some reason, when I was trained in this industry, was always told that it's a specialized service, like truly, and you should only have to like bill for it or charge for it if the client's asking for VE. Otherwise, you just design at the highest budget possible. At least that's what I was interpreting from hearing that it's a specialized service. It took me a long time to realize like truly what VE is and how it should be used and implemented. Strongest opinion from me, VE should just be a standard to the service you're giving. If you're not thinking first and foremost about if I was paying for this project and I was spending X amount of dollars, would I want to buy this $400 per unit more piece of equipment or just stick with the stuff that still gets it done? Like those types of calls, no one likes making. Architects don't like making price or budget calls. You don't like making price or budget calls because it's someone else's money.
yeah,
And yet, for some reason, architects and engineers alike like to design like the best of the best all the time. It throws me off. So ultimately, I guess my opinion of VE is what I should explain first. I think VE should just be implemented in everything that we do. Everything. So that's you as a builder, that's me as an architect. Like we should be value engineering what we're doing because up until we get paid, it's all on our dime,
yeah,
right? And everyone's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. You're not paying for the project. I'm like, in a way, I am because I'm putting forward X amount of money to get you plans,
yeah,
right? So it's in my best interest to not only make sure that we're efficient, but we're actually making as much money as possible and not burning it all on overhead. So in that same
right,
flip of the coin, it's just they need to understand that it's VE is it should be included. It should never be a specialized service. And the people who say, "Well, you need value engineering, and now I'm going to write you a new quote," those are the jerks in the industry. And I'm not trying to be light about that. Anyone can come back at me and hit me on that, but they're absolutely just trying to get extra money out of you. And how is that value engineering in the first place? If I want you to do value engineering, hey, Justin, I'm over budget on my project. Can you help me figure out how to reduce costs? Justin comes back at you and goes, "Yeah, sure, no problem. That'll cost you $15,000."
right,
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? Like, well, I
no,
need to hire you again to help me value engineer this. So what I'm trying to get at is our work and what we do, you should always expect that you're getting value engineering out of what you're looking at. We're never trying to select the most expensive thing. We're not also trying to select something that's cheapo and going to break, but we're definitely looking at multiple sources for heavy price driven items, and we're doing cross comparisons. We're trying to see if there's multiple versions of it available and what's the cheapest, and then we spec that,
well,
right?
and for a lot of products there are like they look
Tons.
to the average person, they look exactly the same, and sometimes they're made in the same plant. They just have
And
different names
clients
on
know
them.
that, right?
Yeah.
So it's this funny thing for me where I hear like, what are your thoughts on VE? My thoughts on VE is it should just be a layered service behind everything that's done. Because if you're not thinking about budget, especially nowadays in today's economy, you're an idiot. Like you must be doing this as a secondary side job thing because everyone's thinking about the dollars that they're having to spend or might have to spend. It's just layered into our head and burned in our brains now.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so if I was told to like reverse engineer something, right? Say we're in for permit, the client comes back and goes, "Hey, I got all my bids back. I'm $250,000 over budget. I need your help." Some of the areas that we would look at to kind of reduce the price costing would be like the ceiling design, the lighting packages. Those are big cost drivers that have very minimal impact on the customer experience. I know. How often do you go into a restaurant? Oh, sorry, maybe not you. How often does an average person go into a restaurant or a retail store and look up and go, "Oh wow, that ceiling looks awesome"? Like not
I
many.
don't know because I do it everywhere I go.
That's what I'm
But
saying. I do it everywhere I go too, but you should. Okay, so now look at it though in this scenario. The next time you do go and you find yourself looking up and looking around, take a look around at all the other people that are looking at you doing it and
yeah,
wondering why the heck you're looking up at the ceiling, right? What I'm trying to
yeah,
prove is the majority of the public and mass populace out there could care less about how fancy that ceiling design looks. They don't care about the fact that the cloud soffit is curved versus square. They don't. They don't even care whether or not there's a cloud soffit there or it's open to deck. They don't. I know they don't. Because I've done the demographic studies. I've gone into these spaces hired by clients and done case studies on what design impacts were actually impactful to the public. Like for a candy store, I did a lot of M&M's worlds all over the country. They hired me post completion, post construction, store opening, hired me to go out there for days on end and just do case studies going around talking to the public and asking them their opinion on design
really.
features, what they like about the store. Yeah. Yeah, so like I have this cool long case study that basically confirms that no one could care about the ceilings or the lighting. They do care about like having enough illumination, but they're not looking and caring about what that treatment or fixture is at all. They don't care about like materials. They can definitely, most public people can tell the difference between like a marble tile and a porcelain tile, but they don't care like where that marble is sourced from or whether or not it's real marble. Like they don't know. So that's kind of what I'm getting at with VE. VE is we would target all of the areas in the realm of design that we know that the public, the consumer end, just really doesn't care or have an impact on them significantly enough to hold in the budget. And then we have that constructive conversation with the client and say, "Hey, look, we really know that you love this ceiling design because we spent 6 weeks on it, but we've ran the numbers, and here's all of your total line item costs on everything in groupings, like ceiling and lighting and all the fields, right?" And then they see that big number next to ceiling and lighting, and they're like, "Oh my God, how do we reduce that?" And we just tell them, well, if we go with these alternate fixtures and change the soffits, just do it all open to deck, we think that you can reduce by X amount of dollars. And I think off the bat, that's the very first thing that gets reduced in VE is ceiling and lighting design. If we can revisit any of the heavy equipment, like HVAC equipment, most of the time you can't because the engineers have specifically load balanced and calced out like equipment per that space. But sometimes you can ask the engineer, "Hey, is there a cheaper unit available by chance?" And then you might insult them because they'll be like, "I selected the cheapest one already." But or what do you think I expected? I select expensive things. That's normally what I get from our engineers. But
Yeah.
I think it'd be it's the same kind of stuff that we identified earlier as what would run long lead times that have impact, design impact, and construction impact. Those are the same items that we VE or that
Yeah.
we would remove from a project to reduce
And
cost.
sometimes clients want them. One of the projects that sticks out to me, I was working in a public hospital doing a muscular skeletal clinic. And so what they did wasn't that important, but their lobby was really important to them. And we had these tape in light fixtures that went up one wall and then across the ceiling. Well, when they're tape in, it changes your sequence. You need the lights early. But then the drywall was perforated drywall too. And so, like functionally putting that in, we had to get the lights, which had a long lead time, install them, then come back and drywall. And then after drywall, we had to go in and clean out all those perforations because now they were filled with mud. The amount of work Like the light fixture itself, and this was in 2016-ish, 15, 16. At that time, that light fixture was $1,000 a lineal foot. The total install cost of that was probably $2,000 a lineal foot. Like by the time you were said and done, that was an incredibly expensive light fixture. I thought it was
Just for
beautiful.
an accent wall, right?
Yeah, the client loved it. Was it worth it to the people coming in there that had muscular and skeletal issues? Probably not, but it was stunning. It looked amazing.
Oh, I bet it looked awesome.
But
Again, the end result is making sure the client is happy. Our job as a consultant, our end result though, is also making sure that the client knows what they're happy about, right? So ultimately, it's we want to give them what they're asking for, but if they're also saying, I don't have the money for all this, and how do I cut out dollars? Those are the
yeah,
first things we hit are like accent walls and unnecessary design elements,
yeah,
like unnecessary to the functionality of the actual space, right?
sure.
So,
So, um, totally different subject, sort of. When you move forward with design, do you consciously think about how do I design and draw in a way to reduce RFIs and change orders, or do you just hope that you're clear and concise, and by being clear and concise, you reduce them, or is there like strategy to it?
it's an awesome question. It's like how do you prepare for all of the inevitable, or even the stuff that you don't know that's inevitable. So ultimately, I think the quality of our plans is represented behind the people who are producing them. Not only myself, but every single member of my team that actually is in my production staff or my management staff. I have construction background. Cool. A lot of people
Yeah,
like that. My manager worked in residential construction on model homes. Raven, my executive manager, was a millworker for like over a decade, doing cabinetry work and custom millwork. My business partner was an electrical contractor. I was a handyman of sorts. I mean, I've remodeled all of the houses I've lived in. So I think ultimately the reason why the quality of our drawings has less RFIs on the approach is just because when we're doing our design, we're doing it in the aspect of would we want to build it this way? Like, can it be built this way? So we critically think about probably too much when it comes down to projects on an individual basis. So I can allot and estimate our time on how long it'll take to produce plans, how long I think it'll take to design things with the client. I'm pretty good at estimating all that stuff. What I can't estimate is the amount of critical thinking that gets involved during the planning and design process from my team. And everyone's like, how can you not estimate that? I'm like, because I have ideas, and so does Raven. If we bring in Daniel, and we've already had 8 conversations, Raven and I have, and we bring Daniel into the conversation and start talking about the same things, Daniel will bring up a dozen plus things that Raven and I had never discussed or thought of.
hmm,
Why? Because he has a completely different angle of perspective, not only on the production side of him doing the drawings, but his own realm of construction and what he's seen out in the field and experienced as well. He has his own mistakes that he's learned from, right? Raven has his own, I have my own. So collaboratively as a team, we kind of compile all of our hardships and the lessons learned of what we've done and get moving into the actual like the whole set of the project. It's not just okay, well now we get into the production side of it. It's everyone's talking about, well, will this cause a problem in the future? Do we want X amount of submittals or do we want no submittals? Like ultimately the goal of what we want on end result from the builder team, I'm not kidding you when I say this, is no news is good news. If I don't hear anything from you, Kevin, but I know you're the builder on the job and you're running things on your own, great. Just keep me on Procore and then update the team weekly status. That's all
yeah,
I need. I love hearing that because it means that we've done enough on our end to set you up for your success on your end, right? Like so that equals our success. Seeing your success is just it's a solidification to us knowing that we've established a good foundation of plans to work off of. So so I guess again, it's not a every architect's going to be different. I can't speak for other firms. I have worked at other firms, and I will tell you that they all have a standard or a set of processes and standards that they follow within their office. Most of them are not fully defined. I can tell you the last two firms that I was at had no guidelines or any kind of principle boundaries on how to work a project. It was
Hmm.
either you came educated into those companies knowing how to do it, or you figured it out. It
Really?
wasn't something, yeah, there wasn't something that was just written down and tell you how to deal with something when it comes up. So for me on my end of it, I've really learned the hard way on a lot of things that we used to take for granted and now don't. Um, I'm still continuously learning. I keep telling people that. They're like, Justin, you know so much. How are you still learning? I'm like, I'm open-minded to continuously tell myself I don't know everything. So
Hmm.
ultimately, it's you won't see RFIs or a lot of RFIs in our plans because you, out of confidence, should be able to call Justin and go, Justin, whatever you designed here, can you come out here and actually like build this, or did you just make this up? Like, you should never hit me with that question. The question should always just be, I don't really understand what you're showing in this detail. Can you tell me what you meant here? And that's about it. Um, but
Yeah. It seems interesting to me. Um, the drawing sets that have more detail are usually the ones that are more confusing and have more questions.
yeah, you gotta
You
hit the
know,
fine line, right?
yeah. And
Too
I'm
much
fortunate enough gotten,
versus
yeah. So, um, just like I guess a random couple random questions for you. Materials. So you probably get hit by all sorts of suppliers and manufacturers with spec our product, put this in your drawings. But what's a product that you just love right now?
Nichiha. You
Really?
heard of Nichiha?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay. Actually take credit for being one of the first American project managers to introduce Nichiha to a major commercial project. But
Really.
and Nichiha gave me some of that credit. They even sent me an email. That was like back in 2017, I think. But we were working on the M&M's World at Mall of America, and we had another one actively going on in Disney Springs, Orlando. It was the first time ever that Mars Retail Group wanted to do two of their $20 million candy stores at the same time. So it was kind of nightmarish on project management and running it in schedule, but we had a major issue with the pre-formed paneling that we were getting from just a custom fabricator. The one down in Disney was essentially going to be the one providing it up to us at Mall of America. And they stop halted all production on it because the client ended up seeing the product out on the field and absolutely hated the crap. Just hated it. It was like, you're not putting that up in my building. Like, I don't care what it took to order this. It was a $92,000 reverse order, by the way, on the builder. He absolutely hated dealing with all of it because, like, the company was like, well, we already fabricated over half of it and we're not giving you your money back. He's like, but they don't want any of it. And it's just this whole thing. But Nichiha
Wow.
came to save the day. I did a lot of research online. I spent about a week trying to find panel systems. This is way before AI could help you with anything on research. So spent close to a week trying to find panel systems that would not only work for the application of the project, knowing that I had two different locations, one in Florida and one in Minnesota. So they had to have relative durability, right? I needed it basically durable enough for cold weather and the really hot stuff. Um, it needed to be very easy to install. It also
Hmm.
needed to have shorter times on prefabrication, possibly even pre-cut stuff that you could just order off a website. Um, it had to be really durable, and it also had to be affordable. Aside from that, like we were just kind of like we needed to know that they had the color range what we were trying to hit. We had two different types of panels at the time that we needed. We needed yellows and an M&M's red, but we needed a lot of it, and we needed it fast. And Nichiha not only like I reached out to one of the sales reps. They're based out of Japan, so I thought I was going to be talking to a Japanese person. This really nice lady calls me, and she says that she's one of the part owners of the company and wanted to help me direct because she heard about our plea for help. I was kind of like a money wasn't really a question; it was all about time at the time. And she was like, "Well, we like that attitude, but we also have really affordable costing." She gave me a huge breakdown for the invoicing on a per project thing, not only on fabrication but freight and shipping, the warranties that came with it, and everything else. Anyways, it was a giant screaming success on both jobs. The client from Mars Retail Group that was like running the whole program for construction reached out to me directly and praised me for essentially saving their construction schedules on both of those jobs because
Really?
yeah, with the panels that they were looking at on getting all of them in, even though they were crap and they didn't like them, they were still going to be waiting up to 6 weeks on getting the rest of the paneling. I got Nichiha's order in. Everything was shipped, delivered, and installed within 4 weeks versus a
Oh my
6 week
gosh.
wait time on the other panels. So yeah, I just leaps and bounds. I've specified Nichiha for any type of exterior panel systems or interior since those projects. I don't really care on any other stuff. Everyone's like, what about Hardybacker or cementitious board, or why don't you just do acrylic board and paint it? Or I'm like, you can do many different things, but I am always going to promote Nichiha because they not only saved two of my projects, but they ended up being exactly what we were wanting, like leaps and bounds, not only in the product quality itself, but their warranties, customer service, the whole nine. So I feel like I should be a poster child for Nichiha, but I do
Huh.
love those.
It's been a long time since I've had a project with Nichiha on it. But we
Yeah, a lot of
recently,
people don't do custom paneling or cladding
yeah,
on their buildings. That's why.
well, we just bid another Seven Brews coffee in Scottsdale, and Seven Brews specs Nichiha for a lot of their stuff. So,
Guess what I'm going to
um,
spec out for the Glencroft stuff on the exterior at that
oh,
breezeway?
Nichiha would be great.
Yeah,
Nichiha would be
heck
perfect
yeah, it
there.
would be.
Like that's the
Yeah,
right
awesome.
product there.
Yeah.
Um, so that might even be right for another location there. Kind of that service wall that we want to hide a bunch of infrastructure there. Um, okay, well, that's great. I didn't know you were a fan of Nichiha as much as you are. So I have actually removed Nichiha from an elementary school project um, a long time
Easy to
ago.
remove.
No, well, I mean, like we took it out of the spec.
Oh, you
Um,
had to pull it.
yeah, we had to pull it, but it is a good product. Um, what's an overrated design trend and an underrated detail?
I'm sure you'll like this. It hits what I was talking about earlier on VE, but elaborate ceilings, any kind of elaborate ceiling design is just overrated for me. Um, uh,
It's
Case in
so
point,
funny to me because I love a beautiful like
I do too.
ceiling with a bunch of detail and like visual interest to it. I love it. So that's so
I
interesting.
love a nice looking ceiling, Kevin, but I don't like an overkill thing. Too many tchotchke things, too many different types of light fixtures when you're still getting the same illumination at ground level. Um, Cloud soffits, it's good to have like one cloud soffit at one height, but if you're having like tiered soffits and it doesn't really make any sense, you can actually make a room feel more congested if you have too much
Yeah.
ceiling and too much ceiling elements within it. So I guess
Yeah.
again, it's all per applique. It's what type of space it is. Case in point, steakhouse that we're working on. Do you think I'm going to put in a ceiling system in that dining area, or we're going to make it totally open to deck? Like that kind of
I know the
stuff.
feeling.
Yeah. And I mean, we're actually still going to have some cool stuff. I'm looking forward to what you're going to see in it, but you can do like a perimeter soffit, right? With like
Yeah.
LED lighting that's like a accent perimeter, and then it's fully open to deck, and you got some really cool string LEDs that come down, and that makes that ceiling pop. Everyone's like, "Why does this ceiling look so nice?" And my answer when I get around to it is like, "What ceiling? There is no ceiling. It's all just nice lights."
Yeah.
So I think elaborate ceilings would be my top thing for overrated design trends. When I work with designers direct, you would not be amazed or shocked to hear that most of their thought process and what they're trying to get me to work on is their ceiling design. Like the space planning and the plan layout and all of it, they care a little bit about. They worry more about what the elevations look like and the standing view stuff than the top down. But they will pull apart an RCP 10 times over before we can actually even get around to producing anything. So I think that's probably the most overrated. On construction for underrated details, it would be partition type details. Um, they're very underrated.
Yeah.
We chalk our plans full of every wall type you can imagine. If there is a wall type that you need to know about in our project because it's a new wall, we gave you a partition type detail for it, where it's a full section cut, tells you how it attaches to the floor versus top track attachment, diagonal bracing, the stud size gauges, the material itself. We try and indicate how many layers of material on either side of that wall if it's a rated wall. We do a lot with our partition type details, and
Oh,
I'm saying
I
it's
agree with
very
that completely.
underrated because I would say most of the RFIs that we get from other builders on like how to build a wall, like, hey, we need to know what wall type A1 is. Our answer is please look at sheet A701 partition type details, detail A for wall type A1.
Yeah.
That's our answer. Um, and I'm not kidding. That's probably 90 to 100% of the time we get questions on wall types, we're answering it with just look at our partition type detail on the partition types sheet.
Yeah.
So
Well, what's interesting is like when I started takeoff, um, like quantifying a project and what it's going to take for an estimate, wall types are generally the first thing I take off. Like I look through the drawings, I kind of look at what I'm building and try and understand it, but the first assembly I create is the wall types. How tall they are, how thick they are, is there insulation, not insulation, is there a single layer on both sides, a double layer, single layer on one side? Like what is it? What's the finish level? What's going on? That's the first thing I take off almost every
it's one
time.
of your tallest material orders. The studs, the jib. When I say tallest,
Yeah.
I mean it's just a long list of stuff that you need. So yeah, I appreciate that you look at it. I already know that you look at our wall type details because you never ask this question on the walls.
I don't think I ever have.
It was an RFI once on at Scottsdale Fashion Square because we accidentally had an extra wall type detail in there that wasn't actually being used in the project, and you asked us about it. You said, "Hey, where is this wall type being used?" It's not. It's just something. Um, but yeah, those are heavily underrated for some reason. I don't know why. Do you know what I'm talking about? Though? Like for some
Yeah.
reason, maybe it's because they're all the way at the back of the set. The way that we structure our set is we'll do like the cover sheet, the life safety plan at the very beginning, the site plan. All of your notes and abbreviations are like the second sheet in the set, right? And then we get into floor plans. We scale from floor to up. So we get into the floor plans, RCP, roof plan if it's applicable, elevations, we do exterior, interior. The details, like construction details, don't even occur until like 15 to 20 sheets into a standard set of plans. Those partition type details come after the construction details. So maybe you're giving me an epiphany right now where I should just start implementing in partition type details on the dimension floor plan sheet if we have room for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because then it's
Um,
all right there. You have the location of all of those wall types. They're all tagged out for their type, and then on the same sheet, maybe above or wherever we can fit them, you have the actual types. I don't know.
I I like them on a separate page because they're important. I think if you shrunk them down, it'd be hard to see, especially if you were trying to stick to like a quarter inch per foot for a scale on a sheet. But it's a little easier on digital, but like on a printed set, like it gets too congested, I think. Um, we're bidding a job right now. It's small, but um, reflected ceiling plan, floor plan, furniture plan, and dimension plan are all on one sheet, and it's really hard to look at. It's too small. So
Yeah,
um,
we want
I
to
think
combine
people,
scope on sheet. Sometimes we'll place details.
yeah, yeah. And then the other thing I look for, it comes up quickly, is not the typical details, but non-typical details. I'm always scrolling and looking for those because you only put a non-typical detail on purpose.
Yep.
So that's one of the
Yep.
first things I'm looking for is this is a one instance detail, and it was important enough to have your team or another design team draw that detail for a reason. And
Yeah.
so as a
Or if it's a
contractor, I
brand
look for
specific
that.
detail, like a lot of times, like if we get details directly from the client or from the brand, we'll label the detail like Boston Market floor transition or something. Do it specifically, title it that way, so that way a builder who is looking through the generic details versus the non can identify, holy crap, that actually says the brand in the detail. We're kind of
Yeah,
doing it as an eye grab to get your attention to it.
that's
um,
smart, Joe.
but yeah, I
That's
think as far
good.
as the underrated construction details go, it's those partition type details. They're constantly missed, and we literally make them project applicable every time. Like we'll take the details from a different job and edit that wall type, the material of how it should be, and everything per that project. So when you're looking at our partition type details, while they are still typical, they're scope applicable to that job. Um,
Hmm.
which kicks me every time. When people
Yeah,
miss them or they're asking me a question like, "You didn't look at all of our nice work, did you?"
yeah. I think, there's a lot that everybody does, all parts of a project, and sometimes it's information overload. It's tough to catch everything, but um, all right. Well, my last question for you, and just to end on it, you work with a lot of different GCs, um, but if you could say, like, here's one thing that GCs would change across the board, and maybe not all of them do it, I guess, but like one thing that the GC community needs to do a better job of to have a better project from your perspective and what you hear from your clients, what would you change?
Um, I am not a big fan of design build. Uh, Mainly it's because my team had a contract in place and spent X amount of hours to get the plans to a certain point and get you a permit. The last thing that we want is the professional changing all of it. We get that you have alternate suggestions and better ideas than architects all the time. Um, but we've done things to a code standard. And a lot of times, if something is difficult with the jurisdiction and you're going and just willy nilly changing it, you're just causing this chain reaction of events where it's causing more work on my end that I can't justifiably bill for. To the client, at least, I've tried to push change orders back to builders and it doesn't work well either. But like, it's the approach of we're not ever coming to you asking you to do our design, so we're not coming to you trying to ask you to do the build. We're coming to you saying here's how you should do the build. It's just a design guideline is how architects have trained me over the years. Plans are not definitive. You guys are the ones that actually make the building a building. Code conformance is what guides and holds it. The design behind it is the structure of it. But like at the very end of the day, it's truly what you guys are doing out in the field to get it done. Now, we as professionals on both ends of that spectrum should respect each other of knowing, okay, well, they should be the pro that's reading our plans accordingly. So any RFIs that we see coming across our way should be in direct relation to just what we've produced. Design build doesn't do that. Design build is the client is now driving the builder to change what was already permit approved and done, whether or not they want the architect to do it. The
Mhm.
builder then has on their own right mind to either say, maybe I should let my architect at least know about this. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they'll do the new work and then tell us after the fact and kind of beg for forgiveness. Either way, it's a thorn in our side and it's a little bit of a slap in the face. So ultimately, if we've done a contract on a job that we knew was not ever structured to be design build and then it became design build after the fact, we look directly at the contractor as the source of the reason for why it shifted gears. Even if the client's the one driving it, the contractor is the one actually holding that wheel and steering it into design build. So I so on the cringe side, that would be my biggest pet peeve. It always has been. Um, and it's just mainly because It's the same flip of the coin of what we were talking about earlier, is where architects don't really understand your schedule or what you guys go through on a daily basis. Most builders could care less and don't understand what we go through all up until getting you hired, right? Like the whole process of what was involved could have been months and months of work. And
Mhm.
then you're coming in as just this somewhat incompetent builder going, these plans suck because you just don't like our drawings. And you make it an absolute nightmare for us, even beyond that 2 months that we were already dealing with all the headaches of all of it. So design build jobs have caused me way more headaches than they've ever been good, including to the client as well, because we don't ever really like doing a whole lot of DB stuff after the fact. And we'll start hitting change order after change order. We do additional services. We justifiably need to be paid for the work that we're doing if it's beyond the contract. And I have those hard conversations all the time with our clients. And they are hard conversations. You know, for some
Yeah.
reason, everyone likes talking about doing the work and getting the work done, but when it comes time to actually paying for the work, no one likes actually talking about it. It's this weird thing
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. I'm not against design build. I think there's cases where it makes sense, but it's like a small percentage of cases. Um, I'm design build accredited. I have been for a long time. Um, I I don't know. My renewal is up.
Terms, maybe it's a definition of what I'm talking about. Design build, when the architect is hired first, the design is hired first, then build comes after. That's the
Oh,
kind of design build that I don't like. The design build that is already integrated, or it's something that's known, like you as the builder are doing the design and doing the build, or you're directly sourcing the design, like we've done in Glencroft. That's a
yeah.
completely different scenario. I'll actually DB that whole job with you in the future, right? Just because you brought us into it, I'll be more involved on that as DB goes, because things come up. Like you can't always
Hmm.
guarantee that that job's going to look 100% per plans. I get that. I think what I'm trying to get at, my definition of design build is when you're trying to change over half of what we've done in development of that scope,
Oh, see, I don't
and
ever want to do that.
doing after the fact. Like once permits approved and you just got hired into it. I've been around with my team with this client for 3.5 months and dealing with headaches with the landlord and the jurisdiction and the client to get it all approved that way. The builder comes in and changes that whole factor and goes, well, all of this is crap and your architect sucks and I have better ideas. That happens. And
Yeah.
the design build project, the client leans on the builder, doesn't trust the architect, leans on the builder and hopes that they get the end result that they're looking
Yeah. I don't
for.
want
That's
to redesign stuff.
build. I'm good with it.
Yeah. I don't want to redesign stuff. I don't want to ask you to redesign stuff. I, as a contractor, like I want a set of plans and a permit of something I can build. And I don't want to write a bunch of RFIs. I don't want to do that. I don't want a bunch of change. I don't want to be asking for extra money because I think you have to be too aggressive for it to make any sense. So in fact, like you guys, in the contract language that you guys put out on changes, like I don't make any money, like none. So I think you guys do a good job of wording it that way. It's a little frustrating at times, but it's like, yeah, this change is, I get this much percentage markup on it, but I lose money, or by the time you factor in my time or a superintendent's time or a project engineer's time, like we don't make enough. Um, and it's just that's what it is. I know that's what we sign up for. They're still good jobs, they're still good projects, and we're happy to do them and love to do them. But I don't want to go through projects where it's 500 RFIs and 50 change orders and all that kind of stuff. It's just time consuming and it's not good for anybody.
But you aren't telling us that much, right? Honestly, is that you don't have a choice but to take that from the because that tells you
Yeah.
the amount of people you're dealing with, you have to track the drawings, and you hold that professional responsible for revising all of the stuff or you just take it in your own hands and let the client know what you're doing. That kind of stuff makes sense to me for design build and when it's one to post permit approval. ultimately, in my perspective, when it comes down to our plan, if you're design building one of our projects, first of all, I should have already known about it. Second of all, if I didn't know about it, we are having a pretty hard conversation. That's about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, our relationship, Kevin, it's still growing, but you're already seeing how we operate. We see how you operate, which is why we love working with Gridline. You were hoping that you guys are our top builder. You actually are here in the Valley for who we choose. We've got you on 3 or 4 different lists right now. You're not getting any invites currently because 2 of them are homeowners, but we have some ITBs that we're going to be sending you guys with recommendations. Our clients are hearing our recommendations. I think that's probably the one approving factor that you guys got awarded on Scottsdale Fashion Square Edo was I had to kind of play the devil's advocate and not lean them towards you, but I had to let them understand and weigh the pros and cons of every bidding professional who they had already had experience with. Out of the top 3, they had already experienced 2, right? And they had their cons. The fact that they hadn't had any experience with you, which didn't have any cons on the list, is kind of a con for them, but it was enough for them to move forward to give you a shot, and they absolutely love you. I mean, I just heard from Pat the other day who's asking if we're getting ready to send out an invite to you guys. So
Good.
So ultimately, it's your work and your professionalism that shows and reflects your ethics, your actual professional ethics, and who you are is just literally mimicked in the work that you guys do. And that's what I'm trying to get at. That's why we
I
like working
appreciate
with
that.
teams like Gridline. It's because we get the same sense that if we were ready to acquire Gridline or vice versa, we'd be in that modus in the next year or so, right? We'd be wanting to have a conversation of becoming a real estate and development company or something like that, which is definitely on the horizon for my partner and I. We're soon going to be getting into RED eventually, but
Wow. Good.
it's those types of things that we want to build these relationships with Gridline and other like builders on. It's because you're getting us some work, we're getting you guys work. We want to just keep that going. I think that's the best way to get through this is building business together. Also being younger. Everyone looks at us like the rookies. I like
Yeah.
saying that we're younger because we are. I'm 42, even though that's not young in most people's eyes. But in the
Yeah.
industry of things, I'm incredibly young when all of these other architects are like, using walkers to go to meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't mind being an industry leader. I actually get a huge breath of fresh air knowing other professionals like you that are also there on that same flip of AEC industry. But you guys are turning yourselves into leaders, whether you know it or not, and you're just on Arizona local level. You're setting a new set of standards for how things should be done and how things should be built. And that's what we need to keep doing. Because everyone else is going to just be following us. We're going to lead by example, and eventually everyone's going to call us pioneers in a year or two.
Yeah. That's what I want. I want to change it. I want it to
Me
be
too.
different.
I'm
I don't
tired
want
of
people
the
afraid.
industry standard.
Yeah. It's time to change it. Let's
I
challenge it.
agree.
So I
Yeah,
like it.
we'll change it and challenge it, push against the grain as much as possible. That's literally my MO for everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for inviting me to the podcast. I know it went a little bit longer than expected. And I'm also down for another one if you will invite me again, if you can catch me when I'm back in town.
Yeah. No, I'd love to. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to more projects with you. So thank you very much.
Likewise, Kevin. Thank you, man.
All right. Take care.